Commander Jack Stone stood at the main viewport of humanity's first deep space diplomatic station, his eyes fixed on the approaching alien ship. It was huge, at least 5 times larger than the biggest human vessel ever built. The surface gleamed with a dark metallic sheen that seemed to swallow light rather than reflect it. "Thorn warship now within visual range," announced Lieutenant Maria Reed from her station. Her voice remained steady, but Jack noticed how her fingers tapped nervously against the console. "They're requesting docking permission." Jack nodded, keeping his face neutral. "Granted. Alert the welcome team." 6 months ago, humanity had made its first contact with the Galactic Council, a loose alliance of 27 spacefaring species. Most had been friendly, curious about these newcomers from a planet called Earth. But the Thorns were different. The Thorns ruled the Council through strength and fear. They came from what other species called a death world, a planet with high gravity, extreme temperatures, and countless deadly predators. These conditions had shaped the Thorns into living weapons, 10 feet tall, covered in natural armor, plates with 4 powerful arms ending in razor-sharp claws. And now they wanted to meet humans face to face. "Remember," Jack said, turning to address his team, "we don't tell them about Earth's classification. Not yet. This was the plan. The Thorns believe humans were like the other soft world species, physically weak and easily dominated. Intelligence from friendly aliens suggested the Thorns respected only strength, and saw other beings as either useful tools or potential food. Dr. Ben Miller, the team's xenobiologist, stepped forward. "Sir, I've studied their biology. They'll sense fear through smell. We need to stay calm." "I know," Jack replied. "That's why everyone here was chosen for this mission." He straightened his uniform and squared his shoulders. "Let's go meet our new friends." The station's main airlock was large enough to welcome ships from various species. As the massive doors slid open, the human delegation got their first real look at the Thorns. General Cragg, leader of the Thorn delegation, ducked to enter the room. Behind him came 5 warriors, each moving with surprising grace despite their size and bulk. Their bodies were covered in overlapping plates that looked like dark green stone. 4 glowing eyes were set deep in their angular heads, and clicking, mandibles moved constantly around mouth parts that dripped with what looked like oil. "Humans," General Cragg's voice boomed through his translation device. "We meet at last." Jack stepped forward and bowed slightly, not too deep, as that would signal submission. "General Cragg, welcome to Friendship Station. We're honored by your visit." The Thorn's upper eyes narrowed. "Honored? Yes, you should be. Your species is new to space. Weak, small." He leaned down until his face was just feet from Jack's. In need of protection, Jack could smell the Thorn's breath, like hot metal and something rotting. He didn't step back. "Actually," Jack replied with a smile, "we're quite interested in trade and cultural exchange. Earth has much to offer the Galactic Council." "General." Cragg made a sound like stones grinding together, their version of laughter. "What could your kind offer except service? Perhaps as food?" The human delegation tensed, but Jack kept his calm. "Why don't we discuss this in the conference room? We've prepared refreshments suitable for your biology." The Thorns followed the humans through curved corridors to a large room with a round table. The chairs on one side were reinforced to handle the Thorns' weight. As they sat, Jack noticed how the aliens constantly scanned the room, looking for threats or weaknesses. "Your station is adequate," General Cragg said, his mandibles clicking rapidly. "Though poorly defended, one Thorn scout ship could destroy it. We prefer to focus on diplomacy rather than weapons," Maria said smoothly. "A luxury of the protected," sneered a younger Thorn warrior named Vex. "Soft-worlders always hide behind words when they lack claws." The meeting continued with thinly veiled threats from the Thorns and careful responses from the humans. Jack could see the aliens growing frustrated by the humans' refusal to show fear. Then it happened. Vex, clearly trying to intimidate, suddenly smashed his clawed fist onto the table. The reinforced metal dented under the impact. "Your species will serve the Thorns," he growled. "Resistance is—" Before he could finish, Vex swung again, aiming to crack the table further. But this time, Jack moved, with speed that startled everyone. In the room, Jack's hand shot out and caught the Thorn's wrist mid-swing. He didn't try to match the alien's strength. Instead, he used leverage, turning the force of the blow aside. Silence fell over the room. The Thorns stared at Jack, their glowing eyes wide with shock. The human delegation held their breath. Jack slowly released Vex's arm and stepped back. "On Earth," he said calmly. Interrupting a diplomatic meeting like that would be considered extremely rude. General Cragg rose to his full height, looming over the humans. For a moment it seemed violence would erupt. Then, unexpectedly, he made that grinding stone laugh again. "Interesting," he said, studying Jack with all four eyes. "You moved. Quickly. For a soft-worlder." Jack shrugged. "Just reflexes." The meeting resumed, but with a different tone. The Thorns asked more questions about Earth, about human physiology, about their history. Jack answered carefully, revealing enough to be truthful but holding back key details. When the Thorn delegation finally prepared to leave, General Cragg pulled Jack aside. "Your world," he said quietly, mandibles almost still. "What classification is it?" Jack looked up at the massive alien. It was time for the truth. "Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world, General," he said. "Higher gravity than your homeworld. Extreme temperatures ranging from 125 to 136 degrees Fahrenheit. Oxygen levels that would be toxic to most council species. Thousands of predator species. Constant natural disasters." General Cragg's outer plates shifted slightly, the Thorn equivalent of raised eyebrows. "You lie." Jack shook his head. "Check your own council records. We didn't volunteer the information because we didn't want special treatment." "If this is true," Cragg said slowly, "then you are Deathworlders." Jack finished for him. "Just like you." Back on their ship, the Thorns gathered in the command center. General Cragg paced while his warriors watched silently. "Pull the council records on planet Earth," he ordered. "Full biological and geological scan." Minutes later, the data appeared. On their screens, the Thorns stared in disbelief. "It cannot be," whispered Vex. "These soft, small creatures from such a world?" The data was clear. Earth's gravity was 1.1 times that of the Thorn homeworld. The temperature variations were more extreme. The atmospheric oxygen content would cause Thorn lungs to burn. And the predator diversity was unmatched in the known galaxy. "How do they survive without natural armor?" another warrior asked. "Without claws or venom?" General Cragg zoomed in on images of Earth, humans climbing frozen mountains, diving into crushing ocean depths, running across burning deserts. "They adapted differently," he said slowly. "Not with armor or strength, but with endurance, with tool-making, with cooperation." He closed the display and turned to his warriors. His voice was low, but every Thorn heard him clearly. "We have made a terrible mistake," General Cragg said. "We thought we were meeting new prey. Instead, we have found another apex predator." Back on the station, Jack rejoined his team. "What do you think they'll do now?" Maria asked. Jack watched as the Thorn ship detached from the station. "They'll report to their leaders. They'll research us more carefully. And then?" "And then?" Dr. Miller prompted. Jack's expression was grim but determined. "And then we'll find out if two apex predator species can share a galaxy without going to war." 3 weeks after first contact with the Thorns, Commander Jack Stone sat in his office aboard Friendship Station reviewing reports. Sleep had become a luxury, as news about humans spread through the Galactic Council. Some species reached out, with friendly messages. Others withdrew their diplomats, suddenly wary of these newcomers from a death world. The door chimed, and Lieutenant Maria Reed entered. Her usual neat appearance was replaced by obvious exhaustion. "More messages from Earth," she said, handing him a tablet. "They want updates every 6 hours now." Jack sighed. "Tell them nothing has changed. The Thorns haven't responded since they left." "That's what worries everyone," Maria replied, dropping into a chair. "The Thorns have never been this quiet. Usually they make demands immediately." Jack was about to respond when the station's alert, "System activated. Thorn vessel approaching, announced the AI system. Size classification, dreadnought. Jack and Maria exchanged worried glances. A dreadnought was not a diplomatic vessel. It was a warship. All personnel to alert stations, Jack ordered through the comm system. No aggressive actions, I repeat, no aggressive actions. They rushed to the command center, arriving just as the massive Thorn ship came into view. It dwarfed their previous visitor, bristling with weapons that could reduce Friendship Station to dust in seconds. They're hailing us, said Communications Officer Tom Harris. Jack straightened his uniform. On screen, the display flickered to life, showing not just General Craig but a circle of older, more heavily armored Thorns. Their plates were scarred and worn, showing battles survived and enemies defeated. Humans, said one of the older Thorns, his voice deeper than Craig's. I am Elder Draz, leader of the Thorn High Command. Jack bowed slightly. Elder Draz, I am Commander Stone. How may we assist you? The Elder Thorn's mandibles clicked rapidly. Our scientists have verified General Craig's report. Your world is indeed a death world. This changes matters. We hope for peaceful relations with all council species, Jack said carefully. Elder, Draz made the grinding stone laugh that seemed common among Thorns. Peace is earned, human, not given. He leaned forward. For 10,000 cycles, the Thorns have been the undisputed apex predators of known space. No species has challenged our position. We're not looking to challenge anyone, Jack began, but Elder Draz cut him off with a wave of his clawed hand. Yet your very existence is a challenge, the Elder said. A species from a world more deadly than our own, without our natural advantages. The question all Thorns now ask is, how dangerous are humans really? The command center fell silent as the humans watched the screen, waiting. There is only one way to answer this question, Elder Draz continued. The war challenge. General Craig stepped forward. Elder, perhaps the decision is made, snapped Elder Draz. The war challenge will determine if humans are worthy of respect or subjugation. Jack kept his expression neutral, though his mind raced. What exactly is this war challenge? Elder Draz's 4 eyes gleamed. A series of trials to test strength, endurance, intelligence, and combat skills. It is how we have settled disputes between species for millennia without resorting to full warfare. And if we refuse, then you declare your weakness, Elder Draz said simply. And weak species serve the strong. That is the way of the galaxy. Jack looked around at his team. Their faces showed concern but also determination. He turned back to the screen. We need to consult with Earth government before. You have 14 solar cycles to prepare, Elder Draz interrupted. The challenge will take place on the neutral moon of Keldor. Bring 50 of your best warriors. His mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. If humans truly are Deathworlders, prove it. The transmission ended, leaving the humans staring at a blank screen. Well, Maria said after a moment, that could have gone worse. Tom let out a nervous laugh. How exactly? They're basically forcing us into gladiator games. Jack moved to the central console and opened a direct line to Earth. Maybe, but they're also giving us a chance to earn respect without a war. He looked at his team. And that's an opportunity we can't waste. 12 days later, Jack walked through a converted military base in the Arizona desert. Around him, 48 men and women, each selected from elite military units around Earth, trained under the hot sun. They ran obstacle courses wearing weighted vests. They fought hand-to-hand in sandy pits. They solved complex tactical problems while under physical stress. Dr. Ben Miller jogged up beside Jack, tablet in hand. We've analyzed everything we know about Thorn biology, he said, wiping sweat from his forehead. They're stronger than us, no question. Those armor plates can stop most impacts, but they have weaknesses. Tell me, Jack said, watching as a woman named Lisa Black flipped a man twice her size onto his back using leverage instead of strength. 3 big ones, Ben said, showing Jack diagrams of Thorn anatomy. First, their endurance is poor. They evolved for short, intense bursts of activity, not marathons. Second, Water is problematic for them. Their plates absorb it and become heavy. And third, they think linearly. They struggle with creative problem solving. Jack nodded. So we focus on endurance challenges, use water to our advantage, and outthink them. Exactly, Ben agreed. But there's something else you should see. He led Jack to a large warehouse where engineers worked on what looked like body armor. Since we can't grow natural armor plates, Ben explained, we're making the next best thing. A technician demonstrated the new suits, made from advanced composites and impact-absorbing materials. They weren't as tough as thorn plates, but would help level the playing field. It's not just about matching their strengths, Ben said. It's about maximizing our own. Jack picked up one of the helmets, feeling its light weight. Will it be enough? It has to be, Ben replied solemnly. The Thorns sent us the full rules of the war challenge yesterday. If we lose, Earth becomes a protected world under Thorn control. Jack set down the helmet. And if we win, we get a seat on the High Council and full autonomy. The stakes couldn't be higher. Jack looked around at the training humans, seeing determination in every face. How are the final selections coming? He asked. Down to the last few spots, Ben said. Tom Harris will lead the physical team, Lisa Black for the technical challenges. We're building balanced teams for each trial. Jack nodded. Good. The Thorns expect us to compete like them, individual warriors seeking glory. But that's not how humans became apex predators on Earth. No, Ben agreed with a small smile. We did it through cooperation. On the final night before departure, Jack stood under the stars looking up at the sky. Tomorrow they would leave for Keldor Moon, where the war challenge would take place. The fate of humanity's place in the galaxy rested on their shoulders. Maria approached, holding 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Jack. Admiral Wilson called, she said. Half the Galactic Council has requested to observe the challenge. This has become bigger than just humans versus Thorns. Jack sipped his coffee. The other Deathworld species are worried. With good reason, Maria replied. If the Thorns can subjugate us, they'll go after the others next. They stood in silence for a moment, watching as team members completed their final preparations. Do we have a chance? Maria finally asked. Jack turned to look at the training grounds where humans from different countries, cultures, and backgrounds work together seamlessly. The Thorns think this challenge will prove they're the apex predators, he said quietly. But they've forgotten something important about predators. What's that? Jack's expression hardened with determination. The most dangerous ones don't always have the biggest claws or the strongest jaws. Sometimes the most dangerous predator is the one you don't recognize as a threat until it's too late. In orbit around the Thorn homeworld, General Cragg stood before Elder Draz in the High Command chamber. The humans have accepted the challenge, Cragg reported. They prepare as we speak. Elder Draz's scarred mandibles clicked slowly. Good. This will settle matters quickly. Choose our champions wisely, General. I want no mistakes. General Cragg hesitated. Elder, I have studied these humans further. They are unusual. Perhaps we should. Are you questioning the High Command? Elder, Draz interrupted, his voice dangerous. No, Elder, Cragg said, bowing his head. I merely suggest caution. These humans don't fight like other species. Elder Draz dismissed his concern with a wave. No species has ever defeated the Thorns in a war challenge. These humans, despite their Deathworld origins, will be no different. General Cragg bowed and left, but doubt lingered in his mind. He had seen how Jack moved that day on the station, with speed no soft-worlder should possess. He had studied recordings of humans on their planet, performing feats that would challenge even Thorn warriors. The war challenge would answer the question that now consumed the Galactic Council. In a contest between different kinds of Deathworld predators, which would prove supreme. Keldor Moon hung in space like a jagged gray pearl. Its surface, sculpted by ancient asteroid impacts and modified by Galactic Council engineers, now featured 7 distinct environments for the war challenge. The human ship approached slowly, dwarfed by the massive vessels already in orbit. Representatives from 23 species had arrived to witness the contest between thorns and humans. Most expected to see the newcomers humiliated. Inside the ship, Jack Stone addressed the 50. "Human champions won last time. Remember your training," he said, looking at each face in turn. "Remember that we're not just fighting for ourselves, but for Earth's future among the stars." Tom Harris, leader of the physical team, nodded grimly. The former Special Forces operative stood like a statue, calm and focused. Beside him, Lisa Black checked her equipment again, her mind already working through the technical challenges ahead. "The Thorns expect us to fight as individuals," Jack continued. "That's their way. Our strength is in working together." He paused, allowing his words to sink in. "They're stronger. They have natural armor. But we have something they've forgotten about over centuries of domination." "What's that, Commander?" asked one of the younger team members. Jack's expression hardened. "Hunger. The drive that pushed humans to the top of Earth's food chain without claws or fangs or armor. The refusal to accept defeat." The ship docked at Keldor Station, a neutral facility floating above the moon's surface. As the humans disembarked, they got their first look at the full Thorn delegation. 50 Thorn warriors stood in perfect formation, their dark green armor plates gleaming under the station lights. Each stood at least 10 feet tall, and their forearms ended in wicked claws. They looked unbeatable. Behind them stood Elder Draz with the Council observers, a collection of beings from across the galaxy, each unique in form. Some floated in bubbles of special atmosphere. Others wore environmental suits. All watched the humans with intense curiosity. Jack led his team forward. The humans wore simple gray uniforms, their new protective gear packed away for now. Compared to the Thorns, they looked small and fragile. Elder Draz stepped forward, his ancient plates bearing the scars of countless battles. "Humans," his voice boomed through the translation system. "You stand before the Galactic Council to prove your worth through the war challenge." His 4 eyes scanned the human team. 7 trials, 7 terrains, victory to the species that wins 4 challenges. Jack bowed slightly. "We accept the terms, Elder." Elder Draz seemed surprised by the human's confidence. "The first challenge begins in 1 hour. Strength conquest in the mountain terrain." As the group separated to prepare, General Cragg approached Jack. "Your warriors seem calm," Cragg observed, mandibles clicking slowly. Jack smiled. "We're just focused." Cragg leaned closer. "The first challenge favors raw strength, our natural advantage." "We'll see," Jack replied simply. The mountain terrain was a jagged landscape of sharp peaks and deep valleys. Giant boulders dotted the area, some larger than transport vehicles. A red flag stood atop the highest peak. The rules were simple. The first team to place their own flag at the summit while defending the route would win. 10 humans faced 10 Thorns at the starting line. Tom Harris led the human team, his face set in grim determination. When the signal sounded, the Thorns immediately charged forward, using their powerful limbs to climb the rocky slopes with ease. The humans split into 3 groups, a strategy that confused the watching aliens. "What are they doing?" murmured one council observer to another. "They should stay together against such powerful opponents." Elder Draz watched from the observation platform, mandibles clicking in satisfaction as his warriors quickly took the lead. "See how the Thorns dominate the terrain," he said to the other council members. "This challenge will end quickly." But then something unexpected happened. While 2 human groups engaged the Thorns directly, not trying to outmuscle them but delaying them with quick, coordinated movements, the third group took a different route entirely. They climbed a seemingly impassable cliff face using specialized techniques bypassing the main confrontation. "Interesting," General Cragg muttered, watching through magnified viewers. "They aren't trying to match our strength." The Thorns, focused on brute force advancement, didn't notice the flanking group until they were nearly at the summit. When they did, 4 Thorn warriors broke off to intercept them. What followed was a display of different combat styles. The Deathworlders Thorns attacked individually, each seeking personal glory as their culture valued. The humans fought as a coordinated unit, protecting each other, creating openings that teammates could exploit. In the end, superior thorn strength won out. A massive warrior named Grax planted the thorn flag at the summit, letting out a roar of triumph that echoed across the mountains. "First victory to the Thorns," announced Elder Draz, his voice smug. As expected. But General Cragg noticed something concerning. While the Thorns had won, they were breathing heavily, their movements slower than before. The humans, though defeated, seemed barely winded. 1-0, Jack said quietly to his team as they regrouped. Exactly as we anticipated. The second challenge. Survival endurance, Elder Draz announced 2 hours later. Teams must cross the desert terrain carrying supply packs. The desert stretched for miles, a scorching wasteland of sand and rock. The air temperature registered at 130 degrees Fahrenheit. Each team member carried a pack weighing 60 pounds. The Thorns hoisted theirs effortlessly, their powerful frames making the weight seem insignificant. Lisa Black led the human team for this challenge, implementing the strategy they had practiced on Earth. "Pace yourselves," she reminded them. "This isn't a sprint." When the signal sounded, the Thorns surged ahead, their long legs covering ground quickly. Within 20 minutes, they were far ahead of the humans, who maintained a steady, methodical pace. Elder Draz watched with satisfaction. "The gap widens," he noted to the council observers. "The humans cannot match Thorn speed." But General Cragg remained silent, watching more carefully. Halfway through the course, the first Thorn warrior began to falter. Their biology, evolved for short bursts of power, wasn't designed for sustained effort. The desert heat seeped through their armor plates, cooking them from within. One by one, Thorn warriors slowed, some collapsing to their knees. Their heavy armor, an advantage in combat, became a liability in the burning heat. Meanwhile, the humans kept their steady pace. When they passed the first fallen Thorn, Lisa paused to offer water, which the warrior refused with a snarl. By the 3/4 mark, only 3 Thorns remained standing. The humans, though sweating profusely, had not lost a single team member, and they crossed the finish line with their full team intact. The Thorns managed to get only 2 warriors across before the time limit expired. "Victory to the humans," announced the council moderator, shock evident in their voice. Elder Draz's mandibles clicked furiously. "A minor setback," he growled. "The desert favors endurance over strength." Jack simply nodded to General Cragg, who was staring at the humans with new respect. 1-1, Jack said to his team as they rehydrated. "Now they know we're serious." That evening, as both teams recovered for the next day's challenges, the council observers buzzed with conversation. "Did you see how they moved together?" asked a floating being from a gas giant planet. "Their strategy was unexpected," agreed a crystalline entity. "They compensated for physical disadvantages with coordination." Across the station in the Thorn preparation area, General Cragg addressed his warriors. "Do not underestimate these humans," he warned. "They are smaller, softer, but they think differently than we do." Elder Draz entered, his posture rigid with anger. "One lucky victory does not make them equals," he snapped. "Tomorrow's challenges will prove Thorn superiority." But doubt had crept into the minds of the Thorn warriors. They had seen humans work together in ways Thorns never considered. They had witnessed an endurance that defied expectations. In the human quarters, Jack reviewed plans for the next challenges with his team leaders. "The aquatic challenge is tomorrow," Lisa said. "Then the aerial maneuvering test." Tom nodded. "The Thorns hate water. Their plates get waterlogged. And they can't fly any better than we can," added Lisa. "It comes down to adaptation and tool use." Jack looked at the determined faces around him. "We're not just fighting for Earth," he reminded them. "We're showing the galaxy a different way to be apex predators." "Without claws or armor," Tom said, with a small smile. "But with something just as powerful," Jack finished. "The ability to work together." Across the station, General Cragg stood alone at a viewport watching the stars. For thousands of years, thorns had dominated through individual strength and fearsome natural weapons. Now, for the first time, he wondered if there was another path to becoming apex predators. A path that humans had somehow discovered. Dawn broke over Keldor Moon as both teams prepared for the third challenge. The atmosphere in the station had changed overnight. What had begun as a certain thorn victory in the minds of most observers was now an uncertain contest. Humans had proven themselves worthy opponents. The aquatic arena waited below, a vast artificial lake with floating platforms, underwater passages, and a central island where the objective flag stood. Teams would start from opposite shores and race to capture the flag. Third challenge, Aquatic Conquest, announced the council moderator. Each team will use only natural abilities and approved breathing equipment. The Thorns stood at their starting position, clearly uncomfortable. Their massive bodies were built for land combat, not swimming. Water was known to seep between their armor plates, weighing them down. The human team, led by Lisa Black, wore only simple swimwear and breathing masks. Their bodies, smooth and streamlined compared to the bulky Thorns, seemed almost designed for water movement. Elder Draz watched, with narrowed eyes. "The water favors their form," he growled to General Cragg, "but our warriors will prevail through strength." Cragg said nothing, his attention fixed on the humans' calm preparation. When the signal sounded, both teams entered the water. The difference was immediately apparent. The Thorns splashed and thrashed, their powerful limbs fighting against the liquid rather than working with it. 3 warriors sank immediately, unused to their suddenly heavier bodies. The humans, by contrast, slipped into the water with barely a ripple. They moved in a tight formation, swimming with efficient strokes that propelled them forward rapidly. "Look how they move," murmured one council observer to another, "like they were born in water." Elder Draz's mandibles clicked in frustration as the humans quickly established a commanding lead. By the time the first Thorn warrior reached the central island, 3 humans were already there, working together to secure the flag. The Thorn attacked alone, swinging powerful claws at the nearest human, but water slowed his movements, making his strength less effective. The humans darted around him, using the water's resistance to their advantage. When the flag was finally captured and raised, it bore the human emblem. "Victory to the humans," the moderator announced. 2-1 in favor of the humans. For the first time, shocked murmurs spread through the alien observers. No species had ever taken the lead against the Thorns in a war challenge. Elder Draz's voice cut through the babble. "The water is an unnatural environment," he snapped. "The next challenge will demonstrate true Thorn superiority." As the human team exited the water, Jack met them with nods of approval. "Well done," he said simply. "But the hardest challenges are still ahead." Lisa wrung water from her hair. "The Thorns look worried." "Good," Tom replied. "They should be." The 4th challenge took place in a massive enclosed dome. Inside, artificial gravity could be adjusted, creating an aerial environment where neither species had a natural advantage. "Aerial maneuvering challenge," announced the moderator. Teams must navigate the floating obstacles to reach the central platform. Each team was provided with identical wing packs, simple devices that enabled limited flight. The humans examined theirs carefully, while the Thorns simply strapped them on. "This challenge tests adaptation to an alien environment," Jack explained to his team. "Neither humans nor Thorns evolved to fly." Tom led this challenge, gathering his team for final instructions. "Remember the simulations," he said. "Conserve power. Work in pairs." When the signal sounded, both teams activated their wing packs and launched into the air. Initially, the Thorns seemed to have an advantage, their strong limbs giving them powerful thrust. But soon their lack of coordination became evident. Thorns bumped into each other, fighting for position in the air. Several collided with obstacles, spinning out of control. Their approach was still individual, each warrior seeking personal glory. The humans flew in formation like birds migrating. When one needed to rest, another would fly close, creating an air current that made flight easier. They navigated the obstacles together, calling out warnings and directions. Fascinating, murmured an insectoid council member. They're using aerodynamic principles to assist each other. The challenge ended in an unexpected tie. Both teams reached the central platform almost simultaneously, with the Thorns' raw power matching the humans' superior technique. The score remains 2-1 in favor of the humans, the moderator announced. Elder Draz seemed relieved to avoid another defeat, but General Craig looked troubled. He approached Jack as the teams returned to the preparation area. Your species, Craig said quietly, fights differently than any we have faced. Jack nodded. On Earth, humans weren't always the strongest creatures. We had to develop other advantages. Like cooperation, Craig observed. Among other things, Jack replied. The fifth challenge would test more than physical abilities. In a sterile white room, both teams faced a series of alien puzzles, ancient devices recovered from long-extinct civilizations. Intelligence challenge, and the moderator explained. Teams must solve these puzzles to unlock the central chamber. Lisa led the human team, her mind already analyzing the strange symbols and mechanisms. The Thorns approached with confidence. They were not just warriors, but came from a species with advanced technology. The difference in approach became clear immediately. The Thorns worked on individual puzzles, each attempting to solve one completely before moving to another. The humans spread out, examining all puzzles briefly, then regrouped to share observations. These symbols match those over there, Lisa pointed out. I think they're connected. Another team member nodded. And this sequence repeats in the third puzzle. While the Thorns made steady progress through brute mental effort, the humans looked for patterns and connections between the puzzles. When one human got stuck, another would offer a fresh perspective. By the halfway mark, the humans had solved 3 puzzles to the Thorns' 2. Elder Draz paced nervously as he watched. They're communicating constantly, he said to Crag. Sharing information. Crag nodded. A different kind of strength. The final puzzle required combining elements from all previous solutions, something the humans discovered quickly due to their collaborative approach. The Thorns, working separately, missed this connection until too late. When the central chamber unlocked, the humans were already inside. Victory to the humans, announced the moderator. 3-1 in favor of the humans. The observation area erupted in excited chittering and buzzing as council species discussed the unprecedented results. No species had ever been one victory away from defeating the Thorns in a war challenge. Elder Draz's mandibles clicked rapidly in anger and disbelief. This cannot be, he growled. These small, soft creatures cannot defeat us. General Crag watched the celebrating humans with new understanding. Yet they are, he said quietly, by fighting in ways we never considered. That evening, the human team gathered in their quarters, atmosphere tense with anticipation. One more victory would secure their place in the galaxy. 2 challenges remain, Jack said. Tactical warfare simulation and adaptive combat. Tom looked up from cleaning his equipment. The Thorns will be desperate now. They'll throw everything at us. Good, Lisa replied. Desperation leads to mistakes. Jack nodded. We still have our secret weapon. What's that? Asked a younger team member. Jack smiled slightly. The thing that made humans Earth's apex predators without claws or armor or venom. The thing the Thorns have forgotten after centuries of dominance. Creativity, Lisa said. Adaptability, added. Tom? Both, Jack agreed. And something more. The ability to see possibilities where others see only obstacles. Across the station, the Thorn team was receiving a furious lecture from Elder Draz. You disgrace our ancestors, he roared, defeated by creatures half our size. General Crag stepped forward. Elder, with respect, we must change our approach. How? Elder Draz demanded. Crag hesitated, then spoke words no Thorn warrior had uttered. In generations, we must learn from our enemy. The humans work together in ways we have forgotten. The room fell silent. To suggest learning from another species was nearly taboo among Thorns. Elder Draz's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. We will win through Thorn's strength alone, as we always have. He turned to his warriors. Tomorrow, show no mercy. The future of our dominance depends on it. But as the Thorn warriors prepared for the next day's challenges, many found themselves watching recordings of the humans, studying how they worked together, communicated constantly, and adapted to each situation. Something was changing, not just in the war challenge, but in how the galaxy's apex predators viewed themselves and others. The sixth day of the war challenge dawned with an electric tension in the air. Spectators from across the galaxy crowded the observation decks. News of the unexpected human success had spread through the Galactic Council. Many species had traveled to Keldor Moon overnight, eager to witness what could be a historic moment. The humans needed only one more victory to win the war challenge. No species had ever defeated the Thorns in their own contest. Sixth challenge, Tactical Warfare Simulation, announced the Council moderator. Teams will command virtual forces in a full-scale battle scenario. The arena for this challenge was a massive holographic chamber. When both teams entered, they found themselves surrounded by a detailed projection of an alien landscape. Rolling hills, dense forests, and a wide river dividing the battlefield. Tom Harris led the human team, his military experience making him the natural choice. The Thorns were led by General Cragg himself, stepping in to ensure victory. The objective is simple, the moderator explained. Capture the enemy headquarters while defending your own. Each team commands identical virtual forces. As the simulation began, both teams took their positions at control stations. The Thorns immediately deployed their forces in an aggressive frontal assault, a direct application of overwhelming strength, their traditional approach. Tom studied the battlefield carefully before making his first move. They expect us to mirror their approach, he said to his team, so we won't. Instead of matching the Thorn advance, the humans split their forces into small, mobile units. They used the terrain to their advantage, hiding in forests, crossing at unexpected points of the river, and avoiding direct confrontation with larger Thorn units. Elder Draz watched from the observation deck, his mandibles clicking in frustration. "What are they doing?" he demanded. "Why don't they fight properly?" A crystalline council member turned its faceted body toward the Thorn elder. "Perhaps your definition of properly is too narrow," it chimed. On the battlefield, the Thorn forces pushed forward with overwhelming power, capturing territory quickly. But they left their supply lines exposed. The human forces targeted these vulnerabilities, cutting off Thorn units from reinforcements and resources. "They're avoiding our strength," General Cragg realized, adjusting his strategy. But it was too late. The humans had already encircled the Thorn headquarters with small teams that attacked simultaneously from multiple directions. As the simulation ended, the results appeared on the main display. Thorn headquarters captured, human victory. The chamber fell silent. Then, an explosion of sounds as the alien observers reacted with shock, excitement, and disbelief. "Victory to the humans," the moderator announced. 4-2. The war challenge is decided. For the first time in known galactic history, the Thorns had been defeated. Elder Draz stood motionless, his four eyes fixed on the scoreboard. General Cragg approached Jack, extending one massive clawed hand. "Your species has earned its place among the stars," Cragg said formally. "The Thorns acknowledge your victory." Jack shook the alien's hand. "Thank you, General. We look forward to working together as equals." But Elder Draz wasn't ready to accept defeat. He pushed through the crowd, forearms gesturing wildly. "This cannot stand," he roared. "The final challenge must still be completed." The moderator looked confused. "The humans have already secured enough victories. Tradition demands all 7 challenges be completed," Elder Draz insisted. "The adaptive combat trial will proceed as scheduled." Jack glanced at his team, tired but proud. "We'll compete," he said. "We came to finish this properly." The final arena was unlike the others, a circular chamber with a floor that shifted and changed randomly. Walls rose and fell, platforms appeared and disappeared, and environmental conditions fluctuated from extreme heat to cold, from dry to drenched. "Adaptive combat," the moderator explained. "The environment changes every 2 minutes. Teams must adapt instantly or fail." This time both leaders entered the arena personally. Jack wore the specialized adaptive armor developed on Earth. Elder Draz insisted on taking General Cragg's place, his ancient armor plates bearing the marks of 1,000 victories. "I will show these humans the true meaning of Thorn's superiority," Elder Draz growled. When the signal sounded, the arena activated. First came intense heat, then sudden cold. The floor tilted sharply, sending combatants sliding. Walls appeared randomly, separating team members. The Thorns fought as they always had, with incredible individual strength and ferocity. Elder Draz led by example, smashing through obstacles and attacking any human who crossed his path. But as the environment kept changing, the fundamental difference between the species became clear to everyone watching. The Thorns struggled to adjust to each new condition. Their tactics remained the same regardless of circumstances: apply more strength, fight harder. The humans switched strategies constantly. When separated, they found ways to communicate through the chaos. When facing stronger opponents, they used the changing environment to their advantage. "Look how they adapt," murmured a council observer. "It's as though they expected the unexpected." Jack faced Elder Draz in the center of the arena as the final environmental shift occurred. Gravity suddenly dropped to near zero. The massive Thorn Elder found himself floating awkwardly, his heavy armor a liability in low gravity. Jack, by contrast, adjusted quickly, using small movements to control his direction. The other humans did the same, coordinating to surround the disoriented Thorns. "Impossible," Elder Draz snarled, swinging wildly as he rotated in the low gravity. "You cannot defeat us." Jack moved closer, his expression calm. "It's not about defeating you, Elder. It's about surviving and thriving in a changing universe." As time expired, the final score flashed on displays around the arena. Humans, 5, Thorns, 2. The war challenge was over. 1 week later, the Galactic Council convened a special session on their central world. For the first time, a human delegation stood on the floor of the Grand Chamber. Representatives from all member species filled the tiered seating, their attention fixed on the historic moment. "The war challenge has been completed," announced the High Counselor, a being of pure energy contained in a specialized field. "The results have been certified and recorded. Humanity has earned its place as a full member of the Galactic Council, with all rights and privileges." Jack stepped forward to accept the formal recognition. Beside him stood Admiral Wilson, who had arrived from Earth for the ceremony. From the Thorn section came General Cragg, now wearing the insignia of High Commander. Elder Draz had been removed from the High Command after his defeat, a traditional consequence of failure in Thorn culture. "Humans of Earth," Cragg said formally, "the Thorns acknowledge you as equals. Your approach to survival was unexpected but effective." Jack nodded. "Different paths can lead to the same destination, General." The High Counselor continued. "This historic moment marks a new understanding in our galactic community. For too long, we have measured species by a single standard of strength. The humans have shown us that adaptation, cooperation, and intelligence are equally valid paths to becoming apex predators." After the ceremony, Jack found General Cragg waiting in a quiet corridor. "Your victory has changed things," Cragg said. "Many Thorns are uncomfortable with change." "Change is what humans do best," Jack replied. "It's how we survived on Earth." Cragg's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "The Council is expanding joint operations, mixed species crews for exploration, and security." He paused. "They want Thorns and humans to work together." Jack smiled. "Combining our strengths instead of testing them against each other? That sounds like progress." "It is unfamiliar," Cragg admitted, "but perhaps necessary. The galaxy is vast with threats unknown even to the Thorns." "On Earth we have a saying," Jack said. "The most dangerous predator isn't always the one with the biggest claws." "And what is the most dangerous predator?" Cragg asked. "The one that can change," Jack answered. "The one that sees cooperation as strength, not weakness." Cragg extended, his hand in the human gesture he had learned. Then perhaps together, humans and thorns will become something new, something stronger than either alone. As they shook hands, representatives from other council species watched with interest. The alliance between two Deathworld species, one evolved for strength, one for adaptability, promised to reshape galactic politics for generations to come. In the council chamber, Admiral Wilson addressed the assembled delegates. Humanity doesn't seek to replace any species as dominant. We seek partnership. On Earth, we learned that apex predators who fight constantly for dominance eventually destroy themselves. Those who find balance survive. The High Counselor's energy field pulsed with approval. Perhaps this is the lesson all apex species must eventually learn. Not how to win every battle, but how to avoid unnecessary wars altogether. As the session ended, news of the human victory and the new Human-Thorn alliance spread across the galaxy. On distant worlds, other Deathworld species watched with interest. On Earth, celebrations erupted as humanity realized its place among the stars was secure. And on Keldor Moon, where it had all happened, the war challenge arenas stood empty, perhaps for the final time. For the first time in galactic history, two apex predator species had found a better path forward than endless competition. Not war, but understanding. Jack Reynolds stood at the viewing port of the small Earth shuttle, looking at the massive space station ahead. Unity Hub was huge, at least 20 times bigger than anything humans had built in space. The station looked like a giant wheel with 12 spokes, one for each member of the Galactic Alliance. Jack straightened his simple gray uniform. Earth had sent their best, but he knew he didn't look impressive. At 5'10" with a lean build, he was average for a human but would be small compared to most aliens. As a former military strategist, Jack relied on his mind, not his muscles. "Approaching Docking Bay 7, announced the pilot. "Ambassador Reynolds, are you ready?" Jack nodded. He wasn't really an ambassador. Earth didn't have enough standing for that title yet. He was just an envoy sent to ask for help. The swarm had attacked 3 human colonies in the past month. Humans needed allies. The shuttle docked with a gentle bump. Jack took a deep breath and picked up his small case of belongings. "Time to meet the neighbors," he muttered. The airlock opened to reveal 2 aliens waiting for him. They were Velar, tall, thin beings with pale blue skin and large, thoughtful eyes. They wore flowing robes covered in symbols that probably showed their rank. "Greetings, human," said the taller one. "I am Assistant Mev. This is Junior Greeter Paul. We will escort you to your quarters and then to the introduction ceremony." Jack nodded politely. "Thank you. I appreciate your welcome." As they walked through the station's wide corridors, Jack noticed how other aliens stopped to stare at him. Some pointed, others whispered to each other. A few made sounds that might have been laughter. "Is there something wrong with my appearance?" Jack asked Mev. The Velar hesitated. "Forgive me, but many here have never seen a human before. They find your smallness amusing." Jack kept his face neutral. "I see." His quarters were small but comfortable. After cleaning up, Mev and Paul returned to take him to the Great Hall for his formal introduction to the Alliance Council. The Great Hall was enormous, with a circular table at its center. Around it sat representatives from all 12 Alliance species. Jack recognized some from briefings. The massive turtle-like Gronth, the 6-armed insectoid Trisect, the flowing semi-transparent mist ones. Each species looked powerful and advanced in their own way. But it was the Dorvan that caught Jack's attention. Sitting directly across from Earth's assigned place were 3 reptilian aliens, each nearly 9 feet tall. Their scales gleamed like polished armor and their clawed hands rested on ceremonial weapons. The center Dorvan had deep red scales with black markings. He stared at Jack with open disgust. Elder Toll, the oldest Velar and head of the council, stood to speak. "Council members, we gather to recognize the arrival of a representative from Earth, a newly spacefaring world seeking knowledge and friendship." Jack walked forward, feeling very small in the huge room. "This is Jack Reynolds, envoy from Earth. Tall continued. His people have achieved faster-than-light travel only 30 standard years ago, and have established 7 colonies beyond their home system. A rumble of whispers filled the room. 30 years was incredibly recent by galactic standards. Most Alliance species had been traveling the stars for thousands of years. Jack bowed slightly. Honored representatives, I bring greetings from Earth and its colonies. We are grateful for this opportunity to— Is this some kind of joke? The Dwarven with red scales interrupted, his voice deep and harsh. This creature is tiny and soft. Look at those pathetic limbs. No claws, no armor. How does it even defend itself? Elder Toll raised a hand. Commander Grack, please allow the human to finish. Grack snorted. Why waste time? Their technology is primitive. Their ships are slow and weak. I've seen their colonies, barely functional outposts. Jack kept his expression calm, though he noticed every detail of the room, every reaction. His job as a strategist had always been to observe and learn. Perhaps Commander Grack could save his judgments until after my presentation, Jack suggested. Grack stood up, towering over the table. I've studied your species, human. You come from a soft world. You were never even the dominant predator on your own planet. While my ancestors ruled as apex hunters, yours were small creatures hiding in trees. Several council members laughed. The three-eyed Orion representative made a dismissive gesture with 2 of its tentacles. The human's presence is curious, but hardly significant. I move we hear his request quickly and proceed to actual matters of importance. Jack waited for the laughter to die down. With respect, I am here on a matter of great importance. Earth and our colonies have encountered a hostile species we call the Swarm. They've attacked 3 of our outer settlements. We believe they threaten this entire sector. This got the Council's attention. The Swarm? Asked a Gronth representative, their voice rumbling like stones. We have heard no reports of any new hostile species. Because they've only engaged with humans so far, Jack explained. But our intelligence suggests they're expanding rapidly. I've brought data on their ships, tactics, and biology. Grack laughed again, showing rows of sharp teeth. And you expect us to fight your battles? Typical of a prey species. Jack kept his voice level. We're not asking you to fight our battles. We're warning you about a common threat and proposing an alliance of mutual benefit. Elder Toll raised a hand. Let us view this data. Jack connected his data device to the Council's system. Holographic images appeared above the table. Insectoid creatures with 4 arms and razor-sharp mandibles, ships that looked like massive hives, and footage of attacks on human outposts. The Swarm operates with a hive mind, Jack explained. They learn and adapt quickly. They consume resources at an extraordinary rate and seem to view other sentient life as either food or competition to be eliminated. The Council members studied the images with varying levels of interest and concern. How have your people fared against these insects? Asked the Mist One representative, their voice like a gentle breeze. We've held them back from our core colonies, but at great cost, Jack said honestly. Their numbers are vast, and they learn from each encounter. Grack slammed a clawed hand on the table. Pathetic. The mighty Dorvan armada could crush these bugs in a single battle. If humans cannot defend themselves against mere insects, perhaps they deserve extinction. Several council members nodded in agreement. Jack noticed how quickly they dismissed the threat, and humans. Elder Toll studied Jack for a long moment. What exactly are you requesting, Envoy Reynolds? A mutual defense agreement, shared technology, permission to establish an Earth embassy on this station, and recognition as potential allies rather than primitive curiosities, Jack replied clearly. Grack laughed louder than before. Alliance with creatures who were swinging from trees while we sailed between stars? I'd sooner ally with my morning meal. More laughter rippled through the chamber. Elder Toll waited for quiet. We will review your data and consider your request. Envoy Reynolds, the Council will vote tomorrow. Until then, you may observe our open sessions and learn our customs. Jack bowed slightly. Thank you, Elder. As Jack left the chamber, he heard Grack's voice behind him. Watch the little human scurry away, so small, so soft. No wonder these swarm creatures eat them. Jack didn't react. Let them mock. Let them underestimate humans. It wouldn't be the first time a predator species had made that mistake. In his quarters that night, Jack reviewed his observations of the council. He noted each species' reactions, their relationships with each other, their strengths and weaknesses. If his request for help was denied, which seemed likely, this information would be vital, because Jack knew something the Alliance didn't. The swarm wasn't just a human problem anymore. Their scouts had already been spotted near Dorvan space. The predators were about to learn what happened. Three weeks passed quickly aboard Unity Hub. The Council had voted against helping humans fight the swarm. They called it a local problem and suggested humans should either fight harder or move their colonies. Jack Reynolds remained on the station as Earth's representative, though most Alliance members ignored him. Jack spent his days watching and learning. He attended open council meetings, visited the station's massive library, and quietly observed how the different species interacted. At night, he sent detailed reports back to Earth about Alliance technology, politics, and military capabilities. On the 23rd day, alarms blared throughout the station. Jack was in his quarters reviewing data when the sound began. Red lights flashed in the corridors as he stepped outside. "What's happening?" he asked a passing Valar. "Emergency council meeting," the blue-skinned alien replied hurriedly. "All representatives must attend." Jack followed the crowd to the Great Hall. Inside, the council members were already arguing loudly. Elder Toll stood at the center trying to restore order. "Silence," the Elder Valar finally shouted, his voice amplified by the room's systems. "We must address this crisis with clear minds." Jack found his assigned seat and watched. The normally composed aliens looked agitated. Even the mighty Dorvan appeared unsettled. Commander Grak paced behind his chair, his tail lashing angrily. "The reports are confirmed," Elder Toll announced. "A massive swarm fleet has entered Dorvan space. They have already destroyed 3 outer outposts and are moving toward Dorvan Prime." Murmurs of shock spread through the hall. Jack sat up straighter. This was exactly what he had warned them about. "How did they get past our border sensors?" demanded Grak. "Why was there no warning?" "The swarm ships seem to use a new kind of stealth technology," said a Trisect representative, her insect-like mandibles clicking nervously. "They appeared suddenly within your territory." "What about the human colonies?" asked a missed one. "Were they attacked as well?" Elder Toll turned to Jack. "Envoy Reynolds, do you have any information about swarm movements near human space?" All eyes turned to Jack. He stood calmly. "The swarm forces near our colonies began withdrawing 2 weeks ago," Jack said. "We tracked them moving toward Alliance space but lost contact at your borders." Grak stomped toward Jack, his huge form towering over the human. You knew they were coming for us and said nothing." "I tried to warn you about the swarm 3 weeks ago," Jack replied evenly. "The council voted that it wasn't your problem. How convenient that they leave humans alone to attack us," Grak roared. "Perhaps you made some deal with these insects." Jack didn't back away from the angry Dorvan. "We made no deals. The swarm simply found easier targets." "Are you calling the mighty Dorvan easy prey?" Grak's hand moved to the ceremonial blade at his side. Elder Toll stepped between them. "Commander Grak, control yourself. This is not the time for baseless accusations." The Elder turned to Jack. "What do you mean by easier targets, Envoy Reynolds?" Jack looked around the room. Now they wanted to listen. "The swarm attacked humans first because we were closest," Jack explained. "But they've been watching you too. They study their enemies before attacking in force. They learn patterns and weaknesses." "And why would they consider us easier prey than humans?" asked the Gronth representative skeptically. Jack chose his words carefully. "The swarm operates like the perfect predator. They seek the best cost-to-benefit ratio in their conquests. Humans proved unexpectedly costly." Grak laughed, though the sound held less mockery than before. "You expect us to believe tiny humans were too difficult for these swarm creatures? When the Dwarven Empire controls the strongest fleet in 3 sectors? Strength isn't everything in warfare, Jack said. The swarm found humans difficult to predict. They value certainty when hunting. You give them that certainty. The council chamber grew quiet as the representatives considered his words. Explain, commanded Elder Toll. The Alliance species have fought wars the same way for thousands of years, Jack said. You have traditional tactics, organized fleet movements, and clear command structures. The swarm can study and predict all of this. And humans don't have tactics or command structures, asked a 3-eyed Orion, sounding doubtful. We do, but we change them constantly, Jack replied. Humans don't fight like the Alliance. We adapt, we improvise. Sometimes we do things that make no strategic sense but work anyway. Grak made a dismissive sound. Primitive chaos is not a military strategy. Jack shrugged. It worked against the swarm. They left our space because they couldn't predict what we would do next. New alarms sounded before anyone could respond. A Valar aide rushed into the chamber and whispered to Elder Toll. The Elder's already pale blue skin turned almost white. The swarm fleet has destroyed the Dwarven defense line at Chorus Prime, Toll announced grimly. They've adapted to Dwarven battle formations and overwhelmed them. 50 warships lost. The room erupted in panicked voices. Grak roared in rage and grief. 50 ships represented a significant portion of the Dwarven fleet. How? Demanded Grak. Our formations are perfect. Our warriors are the finest in the galaxy. Perfect is predictable, Jack said quietly, but in the sudden silence everyone heard him. The swarm adapts to patterns. Your perfect formations became perfect targets. Grak moved toward Jack again, claws extended. 2 other Dwarven held him back. What do you know of warfare, human? Grak snarled. You who hide in your tiny ships and run from real fights. Jack met the commander's angry eyes. I know that the swarm took 3 months to understand human tactics. They've figured out yours in 3 weeks. Elder Toll raised his hands for quiet. Envoy Reynolds, you have experience fighting these creatures. What is your assessment of our situation? All eyes turned to Jack again. He looked at the star map showing the swarm's rapid advance through Dwarven territory. Based on their current speed and the Dwarven defensive positions, Jack studied the map carefully. You have 3 weeks before they reach Dwarven Prime, maybe less. 3 weeks? Grak's anger turned to disbelief. Impossible. Our homeworld defenses are impenetrable. The swarm doesn't penetrate defenses, Jack explained. They flow around them, cut supply lines, and attack from unexpected angles. Then they adapt to your counterattacks. What would you have us do? Human? Asked Elder Toll. Abandon Dwarven Prime? Jack nodded. Evacuate everyone you can now. Outrage filled the room. Abandon a homeworld? Unthinkable. The Council will never agree to evacuation based on a human's assessment, said the Orion representative. Then send your combined fleet, Jack suggested. All Alliance ships together. Hit the swarm with everything at once before they can adapt to each species' tactics. The Council members looked at each other. The Alliance had never faced a threat that required all their forces to combine. The Alliance fleet has not fought as one in over 500 years, Toll said slowly. There are protocols, command structures, to establish. The swarm won't wait for your protocols, Jack warned. While you organize, they advance. While you plan, they adapt. Grak slammed his fist on the table. I will not flee my homeworld based on a human's fear. The Dwarven fleet will regroup and crush these insects. Jack shook his head but said nothing more. He had given his warning. Now he needed to contact Earth. If the Alliance wouldn't listen, humans would need to prepare for what came next. As the Council erupted into arguments about strategy and protocols, Jack slipped out of the chamber. In his quarters, he sent an urgent message to Earth Command. Swarm has engaged the Alliance. Dwarven homeworld targeted first. Alliance response slow and predictable. Request immediate preparation for second wave. The swarm will return to human space, stronger, smarter, and hungrier than before. Jack looked out his viewport at the stars. The mighty Alliance, with all its advanced technology and powerful species, was about to learn a harsh lesson about. One week after the swarm entered Alliance space, the combined fleet launched its counterattack. Jack watched from the observation deck as hundreds of ships gathered near Unity Hub. It was an impressive sight. Vessels from all 12 Alliance species formed neat, organized groups based on their roles and capabilities. The Dorvan warships led the formation. Massive and heavily armed, they looked unbeatable. Behind them came the quick strike vessels of the Trisect, the Advanced Energy, ships of the Valar, and support craft from the other species. They moved in perfect harmony, each group knowing its exact place. Jack shook his head. "Too perfect," he muttered. "You disapprove of our battle formation?" Jack turned to find Elder Toll standing beside him. The old Velar's eyes watched the fleet with concern. "It's impressive," Jack admitted, "but the swarm will study it, learn it, and counter it." "Our combined fleet has never been defeated," Toll said. "There are 500 years of military theory behind those formations." "That's the problem," Jack replied. "The swarm doesn't care about your military theory. They only care about patterns they can exploit." 3 days later, Jack was called to an emergency meeting. The Alliance fleet had engaged the swarm at the edge of Dorvan territory. The results were devastating. The holographic display in the council chamber showed the battle's progress. The Alliance fleet had maintained perfect formation as they approached the swarm ships. Then, suddenly, the swarm broke into smaller groups and attacked from multiple angles. They ignored the heavily armed Dorvan warships and targeted the support vessels first. "They're cutting off our supply lines," growled Grak, watching the display. "How did they know?" "Because it's logical," Jack said. "Any military strategist would target support ships first. The swarm studies its enemies and learns." The Alliance commanders tried to adjust their formation, but the change was slow and followed established protocols. By the time they repositioned, the swarm had already adapted again. Within hours, a third of the Alliance fleet was destroyed or disabled. The remaining ships retreated, falling back to defensive positions around key worlds. The swarm pursued but stopped at the border of Trisect territory. Then they turned and resumed their advance toward Dorvan Prime. "They're ignoring the Trisect worlds," noted a Gronth representative. "Why?" "They're focusing on one target at a time," Jack explained. "The swarm doesn't spread itself thin. They'll conquer the Dorvan worlds first, consume their resources, then move to the next species." "We have 2 weeks until they reach our homeworld," Grak said, his voice tight with anger and fear. "Our planetary defenses are activating, but—" He didn't finish the sentence. Everyone knew planetary defenses wouldn't stop the swarm for long. Elder Toll turned to Jack. "Envoy Reynolds, your assessment of the situation was accurate. The Council requests your continued observation of our war effort." Jack nodded. "I'm happy to help however I can." "Observation isn't help," Grak snarled. "If humans have fought the swarm successfully, we need more than words. We need action." "I've sent all our tactical data to your military command," Jack said, "but they've ignored most of it. Your generals called our tactics primitive and undisciplined." The next day, Jack was invited to observe the Alliance War Council. In a secure room deep within Unity Hub, military leaders from all 12 species gathered around a strategic display. They were planning the defense of Dorvan Prime. "We will position our remaining capital ships here," said the Dorvan Fleet Admiral, pointing to a location near the planet's largest moon. "The Trisect fast attack vessels will form a screen here, while Valar energy ships maintain this defensive grid." Jack studied the plan. Within minutes, he spotted 7 critical weaknesses. The formations were too rigid, the response times too slow, and the defensive positions too predictable. "You have concerns, human?" asked the Admiral, noticing Jack's expression. "Your plan assumes the swarm will attack in a conventional manner," Jack said carefully. "They won't. They'll probe your defenses, find the weakest points, and exploit patterns in your responses." "And what would you suggest?" The Admiral's tone was dismissive. "Randomize your defensive positions. Change them frequently. Have ships act independently, sometimes coordinated at others. Be unpredictable." The War Council looked at Jack as if he had suggested they throw away their weapons and surrender. "Chaos is not a strategy," said a Velar commander. "Our formations are designed to maximize firepower while minimizing vulnerabilities. They're also designed to be predictable to your own forces," Jack pointed out. "Which makes them predictable to the swarm." Grak, who had been silent until now, stood up. "If humans are so tactically superior, why haven't you defeated the swarm yourselves? Why are they still a threat to your colonies?" All eyes turned to Jack. It was a fair question. "We haven't defeated them because we can't outgun them," Jack explained. "The swarm outnumbers us 10 to 1. What we've done is make ourselves too costly to conquer." "Explain," demanded Elder Toll. "Humans don't fight with patterns," Jack said. "We change tactics constantly, unpredictably. Sometimes we retreat when we should advance. Sometimes we sacrifice strategic positions for no apparent gain. We use outdated technology alongside cutting-edge weapons. We make suicidal charges and elaborate feints." He gestured to the neat, organized battle plan on the display. "The swarm cannot predict us because even we don't know what we'll do next. That's why they left human space. They studied us for years and still couldn't anticipate us. They've studied your tactics for weeks and already know exactly what you'll do." Grak made a dismissive sound. "Primitive chaos is not how advanced civilizations wage war." "Perhaps that's why advanced civilizations are losing this war," Jack replied quietly. The room fell silent. The Alliance commanders looked at each other uneasily. Their perfect, logical battle plans suddenly seemed vulnerable. "What would humans do in our position?" asked Elder Toll finally. Jack stepped to the display and began to make adjustments. "First, abandon these neat formations. Split your fleet into smaller, independent groups. Give each commander authority to make tactical decisions without waiting for orders." "Impossible," protested the Velar commander. "That would create confusion among our own forces." "Yes," Jack agreed. "And confusion for the swarm, too. Then position your most powerful weapon systems here and here, but disguise them as damaged ships. Let the swarm think they've found a weakness." For the next hour, Jack outlined a defense strategy unlike anything the Alliance had ever considered. It violated centuries of military doctrine. It mixed advanced technology with primitive tactics. It was, by Alliance standards, completely illogical. When he finished, the War Council was divided. Some dismissed his ideas entirely. Others, including Elder Toll, saw merit in trying new approaches. Commander Grak remained skeptical, but desperate enough to consider alternatives. "Your strategy lacks discipline," Grak told Jack as the meeting ended. "It relies too much on individual initiative and too little on coordinated strength." "Humans don't fight as a perfect machine," Jack explained. "We fight as individuals with a common goal. The swarm can predict patterns, but they cannot predict human creativity and intuition." As the War Council disbanded, reports arrived of another swarm victory. They had broken through the outer defenses of the Dorvan system and were advancing, faster than expected. They would reach Dorvan Prime in just 10 days. The Alliance had run out of time for debate. They needed a new 4 days before the swarm would reach Dorvan Prime, a new fleet appeared at the edge of Alliance space. Jack stood in the council chamber as the alert sounded. The sensor display showed dozens of ships entering the system, an odd mix of vessel, types and sizes flying in no particular formation. "Another enemy?" asked one of the missed ones nervously. "No," Jack said, a small smile forming on his face. "Those are human ships." Elder Toll looked at him in surprise. "You requested reinforcements from Earth?" "I informed my government of the situation," Jack replied. "They made their own decision." Commander Grak studied the display with obvious disappointment. "That's your fleet? Those mismatched vessels? They look like they were cobbled together from spare parts." "In some cases they were," Jack admitted. "Those are the ships that survived multiple encounters with the swarm." The council watched as the human fleet approached Unity Hub. There was no neat formation, no obvious command structure. Some ships were large and heavily armored, others small and agile. A few appeared to be repurposed cargo vessels with weapons attached to their hulls. "How many ships?" asked Toll. 47, Jack answered. "Not many by your standards, but enough to make a difference." Grak made a dismissive sound. "The Alliance fleet lost over 100 vessels already, and we barely slowed the swarm. What can 47 human ships accomplish?" "You'll see," Jack said quietly. An hour later, the human fleet commander arrived at Unity Hub. Admiral Sarah Chen was a small woman with gray-streaked hair and sharp eyes. She wore a simple uniform with minimal decoration, nothing like the elaborate military dress of Alliance officers. "Admiral Chen," Jack greeted her with a respectful nod. "Thank you for responding so quickly." "Earth couldn't ignore a direct threat to this sector," she replied. "If the swarm conquers the Alliance, they'll return to human space stronger than before." Elder Toll welcomed the Admiral formally. "The Galactic Alliance appreciates Earth's assistance in this crisis, unexpected though it may be." "Unexpected?" Chen raised an eyebrow. "Jack warned you about the swarm weeks ago." "Warnings without action mean little," growled Grak. "We'll see if humans fight better than they talk." Chen studied the Dorvan commander without intimidation. "We've been fighting the swarm for 10 years. How long have you lasted? A week?" Before Grak could respond, Toll intervened. "Please, this is not the time for division. The swarm approaches Dorvan Prime. We must coordinate our defense." "Actually," Chen said, "human ships don't coordinate well with rigid command structures. We'll fight alongside you, but we need operational freedom." Grak's scales darkened with anger. "Impossible. All forces must follow the unified battle plan." "The battle plan that's failing?" Chen asked bluntly. "The one the swarm has already adapted to?" Elder Toll stepped forward. "What do you propose, Admiral?" "My ships will operate independently, supporting your fleet but following our own tactical approach," Chen explained. "You defend according to your doctrines, we'll fight according to ours." The Alliance commanders reluctantly agreed. With Dorvan Prime just days from invasion, they couldn't afford to refuse help, even from humans. The combined fleet took position around the Dorvan homeworld. Alliance ships formed their traditional defensive layers, capital ships in the center, escort vessels in protective rings, fast attack craft at the perimeter. The human ships, meanwhile, scattered throughout the system in seemingly random positions. "What are they doing?" Grak demanded, watching the tactical display from Unity Hub. "They're not maintaining defensive coherence." Jack, standing beside, the War Council explained. "They're positioning for independent action. Each captain has authority to engage based on their own judgment." "That's not how organized warfare works," objected a Valor commander. "Perhaps that's why the swarm is winning," Jack replied. 2 days later, the swarm arrived. Their hive ships emerged from hyperspace in a massive wave, heading straight for Dorvan Prime. The Outer Alliance defensive line engaged immediately, following the established battle plan. As expected, the swarm quickly analyzed the Alliance formation and began targeting its weaknesses. They concentrated fire on specific sectors, punching holes in the defensive screen. Alliance commanders tried to reinforce these areas, but their responses were too slow and predictable. Then the human ships went into action. A small group of fast attack vessels suddenly accelerated toward a swarm carrier, ignoring the battle plan's prohibition against leaving assigned sectors. They fired a concentrated barrage at a seemingly random point on the carrier's hull. The massive ship shuddered, then broke apart as the attack hit a critical system. Elsewhere, 3 human cruisers appeared to retreat from a swarm advance, drawing enemy ships into pursuit. Just as the swarm committed to the chase, the cruisers reversed course and attacked, joined by 2 hidden destroyers. The unexpected maneuver caught the swarm ships in a crossfire. "What are they doing?" Grak demanded. "They're abandoning their defensive positions. They're creating confusion," Jack explained. "The swarm expects patterns. Human ships don't give them any." As the battle continued, the Alliance commanders watched in a mixture of horror and fascination. Human captains ignored direct orders, abandoned seemingly critical positions, and performed maneuvers that contradicted all military logic. Some ships pretended to be damaged, luring swarm vessels into traps. Others used outdated weapons that the swarm had no experience with, and it was working. The swarm's advance slowed as they struggled to adapt to the humans' unpredictable tactics. When they adjusted to one approach, the humans switched to another. There was no pattern to analyze, no formation to counter. "Remarkable," murmured Elder Toll. "The swarm cannot predict them because there is nothing to predict." Inspired by the humans' success, some Alliance commanders began to adapt. A group of trisect ships broke formation and launched their own independent attacks. A Valar cruiser, captain ignored orders to hold position and instead performed a risky but effective flanking maneuver. Slowly, the tide of battle turned. The swarm's advance stalled, then began to reverse. For the first time since entering Alliance space, they were being pushed back. 6 hours into the battle, Admiral Chen's flagship took heavy damage while protecting a Dwarven colony ship. The Admiral ordered her crew to evacuate, then set the damaged vessel on a collision course with a swarm command ship. The resulting explosion destroyed both vessels but created a gap in the swarm formation that Alliance forces quickly exploited. After 12 hours of fierce fighting, the swarm fleet retreated. Dwarven Prime was saved, though at great cost. Nearly a third of the Alliance ships were destroyed or disabled. The human fleet lost 11 vessels, including Admiral Chen's flagship. In the aftermath, the War Council gathered to assess the battle. Grak approached Jack, his normally aggressive demeanor subdued. "Your admiral sacrificed herself to save Dwarven lives," the commander said quietly. "She did what any human commander would do," Jack replied. "We value lives over ships. Your tactics were," Grak seemed to struggle for words, "chaotic, undisciplined, illogical." He paused. "Effective. Humans don't fight as a perfect machine," Jack repeated his earlier explanation. "We fight as individuals with a common goal. The swarm can predict patterns, but they cannot predict human creativity and intuition." Elder Toll joined them. "The Alliance owes Earth a debt of gratitude. Without your fleet's assistance, Dwarven Prime would have fallen." "This was just one battle," Jack warned. "The swarm will adapt again. They'll study what happened here and develop new approaches." "Then we too must adapt," Toll said. "Perhaps the Alliance has adhered to tradition for too long. Perhaps we have forgotten how to evolve." Jack nodded. "Evolution is what kept humans alive on Earth. We weren't the strongest species, but we were the most adaptable." As the Alliance began planning their next move against the swarm, Jack knew that something fundamental had changed. The mighty predator. Six months after the Battle of Dwarven Prime, Jack Reynolds stood at the viewing port of Unity Hub, watching ships arrive from across the galaxy. Today marked a historic occasion. Earth would officially join the Galactic Alliance as an equal member. The station had changed in those 6 months. Signs in human English now appeared alongside Alliance languages. Human engineers worked alongside Valar technicians, upgrading systems. In the docking bays, Alliance vessels were being modified with some of the unpredictable features that had proven so effective against the swarm. "Quite a different view from when you first arrived," said Elder Toll, joining Jack at the window. Jack nodded. "The Alliance has adapted quickly." "Necessity is a powerful motivator," Toll replied. "The swarm taught us a harsh lesson about the dangers of stagnation. The combined forces of Earth and the Alliance had pushed the swarm back to the borders of the human space over the past months. The insects still held several outer colonies, but their advance had been stopped. More importantly, the Alliance species had begun to change their approach to warfare, incorporating human unpredictability into their strategies. "The joining ceremony begins in 1 hour," Toll reminded him. "As Earth's representative, you should prepare," Jack smiled. "I'm no longer just an envoy, am I?" "No," Toll agreed. "You are Ambassador Reynolds now, the first human to sit on the Alliance Council." As Jack turned to leave, he noticed a familiar figure approaching. Commander Grak moved differently now, his once proud stride replaced by a slight limp. The Battle of Dwarven Prime had cost him more than just his pride. "Commander," Jack greeted him respectfully. "Ambassador," Grak returned the greeting. May we speak privately before the ceremony? Jack nodded, curious. The Dwarven commander had been absent from Unity Hub for months, overseeing the evacuation of several outer colonies that couldn't be defended against swarm incursions. They moved to a quiet observation deck overlooking the station's central hub. Grak stood silently for a moment, looking out at the stars. My homeworld is safe, he said finally, but 3 of our colony worlds have been abandoned. Millions of Dwarven have become refugees. I'm sorry, Jack said sincerely. The swarm is a terrible enemy. Not as terrible as pride, Grak replied. Had we listened when you first warned us, perhaps those colonies could have been saved. Jack was surprised by the admission. The mighty Dwarven rarely acknowledged mistakes. There's something I need to understand, Grak continued. A question that has troubled me these past months. He turned to face Jack directly. How did your species survive the swarm when we could not? We were stronger, more advanced, more unified. Jack considered his answer carefully. This wasn't just idle curiosity. The commander was seeking a deeper understanding. Throughout our history, humans were never the strongest species on our planet, Jack explained. We weren't the fastest, the largest, or the most naturally armed. We survived because we adapted constantly. We survived because we were unpredictable. Grak nodded slowly. My ancestors evolved as apex predators for millions of years. Nothing challenged the Dwarven on our homeworld. We grew strong, but we never needed to change our ways. Humans evolved as both predator and prey, Jack said. We hunted, but we were also hunted. We learned to think like predators while having the caution of prey. And that made you stronger in the end, Grak observed. Not stronger, Jack corrected. More adaptable. The Dwarven never needed to question their traditional ways because they worked. Until they met an enemy, those ways couldn't defeat. The commander was quiet for a moment. The young Dwarven will learn from this. Already our military academies are studying human tactics, teaching officers to think beyond tradition. Evolution continues, Jack said with a smile. Indeed, Grak agreed. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson the swarm has taught us. The Great Hall was filled to capacity for the joining ceremony. Representatives from all 12 Alliance species sat at the circular table, with a new 13th place added for Earth. Around them, observers and diplomats from across the galaxy watched as history was made. Jack walked to the center of the hall wearing the formal diplomatic uniform of Earth, simple but dignified without the elaborate decorations favored by Alliance species. Behind him stood a small delegation of humans, including military officers, scientists, and cultural ambassadors. Elder Toll rose to speak. Today, we welcome a new member to the Galactic Alliance. Earth has proven itself not just a capable ally in war, but a source of new ideas and perspectives that strengthen us all. The Elder Valar turned to address Jack directly. Ambassador Reynolds, when you first came to this chamber, many doubted what humans could contribute to our ancient alliance. Today, no such doubts remain. Earth has earned its place among the stars. Jack stepped forward to sign the formal treaty. As he did, he caught Grak's eye across the table. The Dwarven commander gave him a respectful nod, a far cry from the contempt he had shown 6 months ago. After the signing, representatives from each species rose to officially welcome Earth to the Alliance. When it was Grak's turn, he spoke words few had expected. The Dwarven have always valued strength, he said. We believed that power came from physical might and advanced technology. Humans have taught us that true strength lies in adaptation, in questioning tradition when necessary, in finding new ways to overcome challenges. He looked directly at Jack. We once mocked humans for their small size and seemingly primitive ways. We failed to see that they possessed strengths we lacked, the ability to change, to improvise, to surprise even themselves with what they could achieve. The ceremony concluded with a formal banquet, where representatives from all species mingled. Jack found himself approached by diplomats and military leaders eager to learn more about Earth and humans. As the evening wound down, Jack stepped away from the crowd and found a quiet corner to gather his thoughts. So much had changed since his arrival at Unity Hub. Humans had gone from being mocked as primitive newcomers to respected allies. The swarm had been contained, though not yet defeated, and the alliance had begun to evolve, incorporating human unpredictability into their once rigid structures. Elder Toll joined him, carrying 2 glasses of a pale blue Vealer beverage. He handed one to Jack. "To new beginnings," the elder said. Jack raised his glass. "And to evolution." They drank in companionable silence, watching the diverse gathering of species that now included humans as equals. "There is something I've wondered," Toll said after a moment. "When you first arrived, did you know how events would unfold? Did you anticipate that the swarm would attack us rather than continue pursuing humans?" Jack smiled slightly. "I suspected it might happen. The swarm seeks efficiency and conquest. After years of frustration with humans, the seemingly predictable alliance would have been an attractive target." "You used us as bait," Toll observed, though there was no accusation in his tone. "I gave you a warning you chose to ignore," Jack corrected gently. "After that, I simply observed and waited for an opportunity to demonstrate why humans should be taken seriously." Toll nodded thoughtfully. "A valuable lesson, though a painful one for many." "The best lessons often are," Jack replied. As the celebration continued around them, Jack reflected on humanity's place in the galaxy. The Alliance had mocked humans for their physical weakness, their technological inferiority, their chaotic nature. Yet these perceived weaknesses turned out to be their greatest strengths against an enemy that thrived on pattern and prediction. In his closing address later that evening, Jack expressed this thought to the assembled representatives. "We come to this alliance not as conquerors or saviors, but as teachers of a lesson our species learned long ago. True strength isn't about power or technology. It's about adaptation. It's about embracing chaos when order fails. And most importantly, it's about recognizing that being underestimated might be the greatest advantage of all." The mighty predators of the galaxy had learned a crucial lesson from the species they once mocked. Sometimes the